Okay, we're recording there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of, I don't know if I'm calling this Comedy Guy or I'm calling this Zez Retro. It's a mashup. I wanted to do some
Comedy
podcasts.
retro guy.
Comedy retro guy, retro comedy guy, retro comedy guy. That's probably it. His jokes are so old. I want to do some episodes talking to creators and gamers and that I like and I watch, and you know, where a few of us are living in small places that we can't get access to cool people just dropping into the studio. So I wanted to get some stuff. So in the first episode here, I've invited on Mark MSX. You might know him from the Electric Underground. Really pushing forward, making a lot of shmup videos about shoot 'em ups, shooters. I appreciate some people may be listening to this who don't know about video games. I guess the quick introduction is they're shooters. They're, we're going to get nerdy anyway, but just in case.
Many names, yeah. The old school name is Shooter, but FPS kind of stole that name from them. And so if you say Shooter now, even if you search it on Steam or if you talk to your friends about it, they're like, oh, like Call of Duty, Halo? It's like, well, not Call of Duty or Halo, so... it can get a little bit. That's kind of one thing that I do wonder how much that even affects the marketability of the genre is simply the name, like discoverability, people being able to discover it, because shooter is such a different term these days than it once was. That's why I tend to say shmup. But people can get kind of funny about that, where some people get mad if you call them shmups, because like, oh, that's such a stupid internet term. It should be shooter or shoot 'em up. I guess Shmup Junkie told me that shoot 'em up seems to be the most universally discoverable on YouTube. So for years I kept using shmup. I still use shmup quite a bit, but now I've been throwing in more of the shoot 'em up tag in there.
True. I think, you know what, when I was trying to describe it to my girlfriend, and I think I said shoot 'em up as well. Like kind of instinctively understanding if I say
that's
the
like
word
the formal proper name. It's like if you look it up in a dictionary, it's like the Latin name, shoot 'em up, right? The scientific research name.
True. So we're going to talk about games, but what I'm interested in, and especially for you, Mark, is, I want to learn a bit more about you and where you're coming from, and the kind of that background story, which we don't often, kind of hear bits and pieces through your stories. I know that you mentioned that now you grew up or still are in Idaho. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So the
Idaho,
mountains of
United
Idaho.
States of America. I think a lot of people who aren't, even people within the United States. So if you're in a different country, you don't know where Idaho is, that's completely fine. Because for a while there, I lived in the Midwest. I lived in a place called Champaign, kind of by Chicago in Illinois. And it was funny when I was in, this was just out of high school. So I went down there for my first few years of college. And people would say, oh, where are you from? I'm like, Idaho. And they're like, oh, Iowa. No, Idaho. And they're like, Idaho. And then the few people who do know about Idaho are like, well, that's the place with like all the farms and tractors and potatoes. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. Now you're getting it. So, yeah.
Did you grow up in on a farm or a small village, or I don't know what you call a village town? What was it like where you grew up?
Small town. Yeah. It's hard to say because there's so many farms. I grew up where there were lots of farms, but my house wasn't a farm. But there was agricultural related stuff in my family, so sort of sort of a little bit.
Okay, why has your family always been in that region, or what originally brought them there?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. My family crossed the whole Oregon Trail. You all play that computer game, the Oregon Trail?
Yeah, I know of it, yeah, sure.
My family is really doing that, really crossing the Oregon Trail, the whole thing. So, yeah.
So you can trace the family back to that
stuff. Yeah.
Dang, is there still some of that spirit in the people who sort of have that? Yeah,
absolutely. It is funny how there can be a bit of culture shock. Like I said, so I went and moved, especially for people who live in cities. I think people in like parts of the world that live in more rural type areas of the world can kind of understand the culture a little bit more. But I do notice whenever I talk to people who grew up in like really metropolitan cities, or people who don't really know too much about that side of life. Like for instance, so I moved at the end of high school, sort of the early years of college. I went out and I was trying, making friends and everything like that. And like, oh, what do you like to do? And everything I did literally was not possible within a city. It's like, well, I like to ride motorcycles, like dirt bikes. I like to go snowboarding. That was huge. Like, if you were the cool kid, like, being cool was being like a really cool snowboarder and everything. And like, went every weekend snowboarding, like rock climbing, like long downhill longboarding. It's like, okay, literally everything that I did was not possible in the city. So yeah, it was pretty big culture. I honestly didn't know what people did. You know, I mean, playing video games, of course, like, okay, yeah, I game and all that, but outside of that, played tennis, you know, sports, I guess. But I still wonder, like, what do people who grow up in the cities do necessarily, you know, as kids, you know? So it is interesting.
I wondered that. I grew up in a small town as well in Australia. Yeah, I'm Australian, but I live in Estonia in Europe for about the last 10 years or so.
There's some similarity between Australia and Idaho people. Just because I've met some Australian people, it's like, oh yeah, there's kind of a similar vibe, I think. Maybe because, you know, you're living out, there's mountains and wilderness, and, you know, you could just walk into the desert at any point type of thing. Whereas if you live in the Midwest, you live in a city, it was weird for me because you couldn't escape, you know, like it was almost claustrophobic because, like, you're either in a city or there's a farm, or you're in a city or you're in a town. There's like no wilderness, so to say. So yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah, I get you. But where I grew up is, I don't know if you've ever seen that old TV show Home and Away. It's an old Australian soap opera. But it's by the water. It's a small coastal town. There's golden sands and blue water and
surf
shit like that. Yeah, and there's mountains. Yeah, right. My house backed onto a forest or whatever you want to call nature. So I could just, you know, hey, I'm heading off. I'm cycling. No snow though. A little bit too warm for the snow in Australia. Definitely. We have like one place that gets snow, and we're like, let's go to the snow fields. And like for 2 days a year, it drops snow. We're like, oh, it's amazing.
Well, the interesting thing about Idaho is that it's a climate that can't make up its mind. So in the winters, in the summers, it's straight up desert. It's like a desert. And then in the winters, it's like, okay, now we're all tundra and cold. But it's just kind of a really weird place weather-wise, as far as it will go from the extremes of being crazy hot in the summers to being really cold in the winters, which is, I think, probably pretty unusual. Maybe some places in Canada are like that, but Idaho's kind of known for being weird like that. That's why potatoes grow so well here, because the crazy.
Oh, really? That's what they need, is it?
Yeah, they like it. Something about the temperatures really suits the potatoes.
Okay. Oh, the Idaho potatoes, is that a thing? Is it? I've never heard of it before.
That's world famous potatoes. If you go, so if you live somewhere else in the United States and you go to a fancy restaurant or whatever, on the menu, it's not just a potato; it's an Idaho potato. You know, I think that's probably what we're most famous for. Well, and I like potatoes, so I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty good. Well, I'm here in Eastern Europe, so okay, we know about the potato as well. Yes, my friends.
Right, exactly.
It is all potato we heard for many years.
We can battle it out.
When you were growing up, there was outdoor activities to do, and snowboarding and getting out there. But what games were you playing when you were growing up? What consoles did you have when you were growing up?
Oh, well, I was a brat. Well, I'm not really a brat, but I was a lucky boy because I got a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo. I had both of them. Yeah, I had the trifecta. But I always thought, this is the thing though, before the world of the internet, you know, because I actually was, before doing the Electric Underground, I guess this might be one of the most unique things about me in these days and ages, was I had no social media exposure. I was not on any social media. I wasn't on forums. Like, I was just, just taken out of my local region and placed onto the internet. And so I thought it was kind of a foregone conclusion that the Super Nintendo was just way better than the Sega Genesis, because everyone around growing up, we just all came to that consensus pretty clearly. It's like, Genesis is cool, it has Sonic and everything, but I mean, the Super Nintendo was just such a beast. So yeah, I definitely played both consoles, but I heavily favored the Super Nintendo, which is funny because I'm a shmup player, but at the time, I wasn't as into shmups as I am these days.
I think I had a a PC. I had an Amiga to start with.
Yeah,
because that
yeah.
whole like the parents like, oh, it's a computer. It's he's gonna learn. And
that's the thing I've come across with a lot because I have a lot of European viewers of the channel, like British and then European, and you all had the gaming PCs. That was a real thing. Whereas I think like American players, that's a little less common that we had gaming PCs. Where I think Americans tend to be, at least in the past, much more console focused.
I think so too. I think that
didn't
early
get my first
sort of
gaming PC until I want to say middle school, and it was all Blizzard stuff. So I was playing Diablo and StarCraft. I was huge on StarCraft Brood War, one of my favorite games. But but as far as like those Amigas and everything like that, I didn't even know those existed until YouTube and all that.
Yeah, there seemed to be some in England. They had the Amstrad and the Sinclair.
Oh yeah,
and the Amiga. And I guess that whatever happens in England sort of filtered down to Australia to the Anglo-ness of it. So we had those out there as well. But yeah, you're right. Without that sort of, it was the British who really pushed forward the microcomputer, I guess they call it.
Yes, exactly.
First.
Yeah, such a unique thing. And I had an episode on my podcast way long ago. It was really cool. I was with a British player called EX Mosquito, and the whole episode is me just picking his brain on retro gaming in Britain back in the day because it's so different. And it sounded like Britain was kind of like the place to be because they had the import scene. So he had all these import things from Japan. Then they had the micro PCs or whatever. And then they also had the Nintendo and the Genesis or the Master System, they called it. So they just had it all, right? Where for me, it was mostly just console stuff.
I think England might have been the place. In Australia, everything, because we're so far away as well, everything cost a lot. I don't know if my family just didn't have much money as well or something. But yeah, to get things down there, I think one of the reasons I love fight sticks today and I love arcade sticks is because they were so like off limits back then. Like would have been so expensive, way more than the console. Yeah. I can't imagine getting the console and then getting something that costs twice as much again.
Right. It's kind of like the Neo Geo thing, right?
Yeah, for you guys. Yeah. Oh my God, Neo Geo, I'd never heard of it before. It wasn't really a thing in Australia, so I wouldn't have, like I read about it in the magazines. We had all the magazines. We had all the British magazines.
Yeah.
So the classic Mean Machine, CVG, Amiga Power. Before that, we were getting all of those, but they were incredibly expensive. I want to say they were like $10 each, which back then was huge.
Really? And that's crazy. Like, because I remember even back in the day for me, for instance, I remember buying Super Mario RPG. It was like $65, and that was back in the 90s. Like, I felt like games were hella expensive back in the day. Maybe that's just me. For us, like everything was $50 or $60, other than maybe Game Boy games. I think Game Boy games were $20, if I can remember correctly. But console games, most everything was like full priced, super, super expensive.
I think that's also what I had a Genesis for a while as well, or Mega Drive, as we say. And I only had a few games because I grew up on the Amiga and I grew up basically on the piracy scene, on the copying.
Right. Yeah, that's what I heard
you get
about.
A box of discs, 10 3.5-inch floppies, and then you go over to your mate's house, have a sleepover, and just copy discs all night long.
That's awesome. I did shit with CDs back in the day. You know, like, oh, he's got the CD, let's all copy and burn it. But yeah, I don't think I ever ran into that until the PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast stuff, you know, as far as people burning games and everything. I remember that being the real cool thing was the dude who had all these burned Dreamcast games. He's like the hookup or whatever.
Because when you were burning the Dreamcast games back in the day, were you just like, because the Dreamcast can just play, some models of them can just play.
Yeah. You could just stick it in there and let it roll. Yeah.
And go for it. Where at least the PlayStation, well, it needed the chip.
Mod chip. You got to mod chip it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember we ruined a PlayStation. Like back when they were still expensive, you know, when they were current. We ruined a PlayStation, and I mean, I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God.
I did that with a PS2 recently. It's not that big of a deal these days, but I was getting I had like at one point I had 4 PS2s, and I started getting experimental with some of them. And one of them I thought I'd install this mod chip on, but it was a mod chip made for an earlier PlayStation model, and the newer PlayStation models have these microscopic solder points. I mean, they are machine only, and I tried to hand solder it in there, and I just cooked it, and so I had to throw it away. But yeah, so I have a dead PlayStation on my hands, or PS2 on my hands as well, trying to mod chip it.
Those PS2 mod chips, they have a lot of wires coming off them as well. It's not just like the old PS1 5 wires and you're done.
I was like, jeez. That's one of the hardest mods I've ever seen, is like a PS2 mod chip on the later PS2s. They look insane. You need like a professional kit or something. Like there was a channel I used to watch quite a bit when I was doing a lot of modding. I think Mr. Mario, and he had a video of him doing it. And yeah, he had to have like all this special equipment to make it happen.
Yeah, you watch Voltar or something like that, and then you think like, I mean, he's good. He's good at explaining stuff, but yeah, how do you just got to look? You got to find some old electronics. You got to, I mean, maybe it's like any skill. You've got to put that time in. You got to put that practice time in. Okay, now's the practice. I'm going to take some old circuit board.
That is true. Yeah. Like over the years, my soldering skills have improved a lot. Where I've done a lot of modding and all these like small little electronics that I do. The other day, speaking of like real life type stuff, I felt pretty cool because for once my like nerdy gaming skills of modding things came in handy in real life, where our dishwasher, a mechanism in the dishwasher broke. And so it was an electronic rather, because I can't like fix cars or anything. My brothers can do that. I don't really care much for fixing cars or whatever, but I do like fixing electronics. And I went in there and basically hot wired the dishwasher and fixed it. And I felt like, yeah, who's manly now?
How many, you mentioned brothers. How big's your family? How many people in there?
I have two brothers, an older and a younger. I'm the middle child.
Okay. All right. So how was it, like, when you were growing up, like, I mean, okay, you were playing consoles and you're going outside. Were you good at school? Was school something that you're into or not?
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting because, it sounds kind of, conceited, but I was like pretty gifted in school, especially for where I lived, to the point where I just had the reputation of being like the really smart kid for many years. I was like in all those accelerated programs, and I remember I took this standardized test. I can't remember what state. There was a long time. I don't think there's Iowa Basics or something, but there's a long time where most of the states just used this other state's standardized test, even though you didn't live there. I think it was the Iowa Basics. And so I took the Iowa Basics test, and I had like I had a really high score at it. I remember like the teacher made this big deal out of it, and there's like a announcement in middle class, like, congratulations, Mark, you scored I think in 4th grade, I scored in like the 8th grade comprehension level or something like that. So yeah, I always had a really easy time in school, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to ask, did you have to work at it though? Because that can be the curse later on.
Absolutely not. All through school, even through college. I have this weird talent of where, if I hear something, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Capote, where Truman Capote, if you haven't seen it, it's one of my favorite movies. Truman Capote talks about how he had a talent as a writer where he could sit and listen to a conversation and then reproduce it verbatim in his books, like forever. Like he could remember conversations forever. I have a weird talent like that, where if I sat through lectures and just listened to them, I could almost recreate what was said verbatim in the lecture. And I actually can like remember what people say verbatim. It comes in handy for a lot of different things, but it's actually a really useful talent in school, because the lecture will tell you, or the teacher will tell you, okay, so this or that fact. And then 3 weeks later, I could remember it verbatim and on the test just write down. So all I had to do in class really was just sit, and I would just sit there and like doodle, whatever. And I could get through school just doing that all the way up through college. I think it was the first time I really had to buckle down was in math class, because you can't really do that in math because it's all, logic and shit. So that was when I was like, oh shit, I have to actually work here. But for all the other stuff, history, English, all that sort of stuff, I could just verbatim remember everything from the lectures. So it is kind of interesting. You can maybe think about the education system a little bit. But I remember math is where it really hurt me. In chemistry, I was like, fuck this. I don't want to. But for most of school, I had a really easy time.
Most education is just learning something. Like,
I mean, in our
school system, just like remembering and
saying. School a lot, which might be kind of unusual for a lot of people, but I actually loved school. It was like I just went there and socialized every day. It's kind of like you know what I mean? Kind of like a chance to meet a lot of people and make friends and everything like that. And I'm a pretty social person, so I really liked school quite a bit. And so it is funny looking back at how, like, when you meet people have many different feelings on how school was and high school was. I was like, that shit was awesome. I don't know what you're all talking about, but I know. But it's also brutal. I think it also helped that I had brothers, and it was like basically we constantly competed at all times, at all moments of the day. Like everything was a competition all the time, always, no matter what it was. And so, like, I just carried that throughout life and school. So, like, going to school and having peers being competitive with me and, you know, all that sort of stuff, that was just, like, second age. Like, okay, yeah, I understand this. But I think people who probably don't have as intensive of a home environment, probably that's where it starts to get to be trouble, probably.
Yeah, I'm an only child, so I didn't have any intensity in my home environment. Exactly that. I was kind of okay again. I haven't got the memory that you do. In fact, I have the opposite of the memory. I have a terrible memory. But I still
have a memory for spoken conversation, but I don't have a memory for other things. I'm not like a savant where like you know those like memory tests that you sit down and take where you like, oh, what, you know, there's all this stuff on the screen. How many people were doing this or that. That stuff I'm not any better at than anyone. In fact, I'm probably a little weaker than most people because I overcompensate just with my audio memory. So the funny thing is, speaking of gaming, is that one of the most challenging things for me was getting into shmups, because a lot of my sort of natural skills don't lend to shmups all that well. I think they're much more of a visually spatial memory intensive genre, and that's not something I'm particularly gifted at. So I think that was a pretty interesting experience, trying to like dissect how the genre works backwards, because one thing I've noticed over the years is that some people just get the genre like that. It's so intuitive to them. It's so natural to them. And it's pretty clear, those types of people, because they just show up, they start playing the genre. The next thing you know, 5 months later, they're challenging world record scores and stuff. And I have some interviews on my channel where I'm like trying to understand how are they accomplishing it. And they're like, I don't know. It just makes sense, you know. You know what I mean? So,
do you think that when someone comes along like that and it just makes sense, is it that they have that memorization, that visual memorization, or is there some other more indelible that just makes sense quality to them?
I think this is my theory, obviously, but I think it has to do with spatial intelligence. A lot of it has to do with spatial intelligence. Because the hallmarks of a super player, I'm actually making a video about this, isn't just like they have quick reflexes and stuff, because I actually have really quick reflexes, but that doesn't make me a super player. It's also the ability to understand the underlying visual concepts of the game, like understanding how if you interact with this area of the screen, how it will affect the next area of the screen like 5 seconds later, and being able to sort of visualize the patterns, visualize what will happen on screen before it actually happens with accuracy. Because what's cool about shmups and why I love the genre so much, it isn't just like, oh, do you get the concept? It will actually measure how accurately can you predict, down to the pixel, where this bullet will appear, where this pattern will appear, where it will shift. I think that is where a lot of these players are really gifted in that areas. They can map that mental picture in their mind much more tangibly than this is a skill that I've worked on over the years, and I think this is what's helped me get better at the genres, being able to visualize what will occur before it actually does, like in specific detail. I think that's probably one of the strongest skills for being like naturally good at the genre.
When you've worked on that skill, because I was reading your article about skill and talent in shmups,
yeah,
and that it was a little bit like a taboo thing, pardon me, to say like, oh, they're skilled, they've just got it, you know. No, it's talent. Sorry, they work to do that. But okay, so let's say you've said that the visual acuity here, the visual part is not your strong suite. Although,
absolutely
look,
not.
I might say you've got some aptitude in the area. The audio definitely thing, at least, you know, there's something there at least. Yeah. But okay, I hear where you're coming from. Cool. When you were learning this, is it when you are practicing, are you consciously thinking about the way you're putting the next things together, like what you were just speaking about? Okay.
Yes, and I think that's how I got better at the genre, because at first I wasn't able to do it. Like my brain could not figure out exactly how to fire that mechanism in my head. But yes, actually, when I am playing really well, I am consciously thinking stuff like, okay, if I move here, this is going to cause the pattern in 3 seconds to shift slightly to the left. When it shifts slightly to the left, I will then move here, and this will cause the next pattern to move slightly to the right. And you can build that mental picture in your head before it occurs. And so when you watch people play, it looks incredible. They're like, holy crap, how are they doing this on screen? It's because they're able to, in vivid detail, predict what exactly will happen. What makes shmups really good, like why cave shmups are specifically my favorites, is because Cave knows this, and so they always add in a lot of the patterns just this tiny variation, this tiny thing. So there's always this little X factor where you can kind of understand what you need to do, but Cave will always add in just this little randomness to it so that you have to adjust a bit on the fly too. You can't just by memory go through. You have to understand the underlying patterns, and then you also have to react to some degree because the patterns will shift a little bit just randomly. So but
when you say patterns, you mean like the same boss type or something, or the same enemy type will react ever so slightly different each version of them.
Yeah, and it's very slight. Not always. Some patterns are straight up static, but you'll notice a lot of the Cave boss patterns, you can't just wouldn't that be nice if you could just straight up memorize where to go? But I actually a great pattern for this I was just thinking about was pattern 3 in DoDonPachi. Oh, I don't know. I'm talking shmuppies. Okay.
Oh, we can go into it. It's fine. I played DoDonPachi as well, so sure, let's go.
Okay. DoDonPachi, stage 6, the boss state. There's a final pattern of the stage 6 boss where he shoots these sort of waves and curtains that open and close, and then on top of that, he layers these blue spears. And if you understand the way that pattern works, you can develop a sort of strategy for dodging it, but it's never completely static. I think Jamers has a really nifty way to make it almost that way, but with certain ships, they're just not fast enough to do that. So you have to react, but you also have to understand the underlying principles of how the pattern works. Yeah, the patterns they come up with are just fantastic for that sort of reason. And that's something, whenever I dodge a pattern like that, I'm like, oh, that's some really good game design.
Okay, when you can consciously understand, like someone thought about this. This isn't the memory.
Like Cave's a step ahead of you. They're like, okay, we know what you want to do, but we're gonna throw this. That pattern has this nasty bit where you're going through, and it kind of puts you in this rhythm. You're like left, right. Okay, I'm dancing, and then it'll throw the what I call the change up spear, where it'll go left, right. And so if you're going left, right, and then it'll just run into it. It'll start doing that. It'll start throwing in these change-ups and stuff, and it's one of the best patterns in shmups, I think.
Is DoDonPachi completely deterministic? Like, if I, down to the pixel, added the same inputs, would it react in exactly the same way every playthrough?
No, it would not. Absolutely. No. Okay. DoDonPachi actually has a surprising amount of RNG that I think a little bit more than some of the later Cave shmups. Some of the times it's like really frustrating, the crazy RNG. So the way it works is, if you like, why replays work or like input files work is because MAME does some sort of seeding or something to make the RNG exactly the same on the replay or whatever. But let's say you know, like, have you heard of TaskBot before that they do in the GDQs or whatever? Okay, so someone made this thing called TaskBot for speedrunning where they have a robot that plays the controller. So it's not it's not like an emulator. They have like a literal robot playing the game. And a lot of games, like Mario Bros or whatever, the robot can just do the same thing every time. It'll work every time. But if you put that robot and you like did a super play with it, and then you put him down and just restarted the PCB and had him play again, no, at some point the patterns would shift, the RNG would shift, and the robot would die. You wouldn't be able to play it out.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Like, I wasn't sure whether it was just me. Like, I mean, I understand I'm doing the same pattern. I've got my route through there, but I wondered. Okay, I'm off by a few pixels. Obviously, I'm off by many pixels often, and whether that was affecting it. But it's straight up RNG for a lot of those things.
A lot of them are. It's the slight bit of RNG where it's not super perceptible a lot of the time, but like if it was exact, some of them are straight up RNG though. Like Stage 3 mid-boss where they shoots those purple clouds that spin, that's straight up RNG. I've even had people try and dissect if there's some kind of underlying logic to that thing. Because in Loop 2, that's a brutal pattern. It's like, no, it's just straight up RNG. You just have to dodge it. So that pattern's a very just straight up RNG wall right there. Stage 3's got a lot of stuff. And then the Stage 3 boss, holy shit. The RNG on that thing is insane. So the game has a lot of RNG in it for sure.
I had been wondering about, that's right, Stage 3, as you said, mid-level boss, it's the purple things that fight, that
those like
come out fast and
bullets.
then they cloud out. Right, okay, so that's
straight up RNG.
That's straight up RNG. Okay, and then the final one.
And I tried to, there's sort of a strategy that you can do that like a lot of times will work, but sometimes you'll just straight up get hit, especially in the second loop where you kind of go down into the right corner in this sort of angle. And a lot of the time, there's a gap there. A lot, like, percentage-wise, maybe like 70%
on the mid-level boss, sorry, you're talking about here.
Yeah, on the mid-level boss.
Yeah.
But sometimes, there's no gap there and you just get nailed. But, and that way, you just gotta, oh shit, and try and dodge it.
Well, usually I usually go down to that corner as well, because he's usually on the other side of the screen, so you're sort of kind of the furthest away in that corner, and hopefully they've expanded
I feel like
out.
that corner has a little bit more wiggle room. Yeah, it's like slightly a little bit to the left, so the bottom right corner, you get a little bit more wiggle room down there.
I'm not, to back up on my history of shmups, I'm not a very good player, and for me, shmups were always something as a kid, I was like, oh my god, I would play, maybe on my Amiga, there was some R-Type or something like that, and Xenon, I think, was one of the other ones I had, and I would just die straight up. I would just be like, when I was there, I was playing, I used to like finish Monkey Island and adventure games and Sam and Max and this stuff is what, Fate of Atlantis is what I played as a kid. Like back in the day when there was no internet, no social media, you just had hours of the day to fill.
I know.
Nothing to, what are you going to do?
So I it's crazy to think like, gaming back then was so different than it is now. And I think, honestly, the internet has really changed the way games are designed. Where, for instance, like you couldn't get too crazy with some of the like esoteric game design ideas because your players may never figure it out ever. And there's like no guides or anything like that. Like, for instance, my favorite game growing up was Super Metroid. It was absolutely my favorite game. I played it for hundreds of hours over the years. But I spent literally 2 years stuck on a section of that game where there's a part where you need to bomb this room, this super pipe, and it breaks. And it's kind of like a really esoteric thing you have to do. And so for 2 years, I wouldn't play the game constantly, but like, once or so a month, I'd pick it up. I went and bombed every single tile of the entire game, trying to find where do I go next. I tried like reverse routing things, and I got much further than all my friends, so they're like, I don't know what to do. My brother's like, that game's stupid, I don't care what play something else. And then one day, I don't even know how I did it, I just bombed that pipe room and it broke. I was like, oh my god, it was like one of the biggest revolutionary moments in gaming. I was like, oh my god, I did it. I figured out where to go. Then I beat the game like the next day. But literally 2 years I was stuck because I couldn't figure out to bomb the stupid pipe. Oh my god. See, and the game gives you no clues. Super Metroid gives you a lot of clues through a lot of the game, like, oh, this is how you wall jump, this is how you speed boost. But it gives you no in-game clues that this pipe, you could blow it up. So, yeah.
Right, and now you can just go and find the online guide or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You could watch the long play in about 5 minutes, figure it out.
Right. I want to go back a moment just to sort of build the story of how we're getting to who you are today, and not to focus too long on things, but what did you study at university or college?
I studied literally everything. So I walked out of there with all the degrees. I remember, I started off doing physical therapy, and I got my entire undergraduate in physical therapy. So I did all the medical courses, but at the same time, for some reason, I thought I had to, because college is so expensive, I thought, why don't I just take 17 credits every single semester? That way, for the future, if I need all these other degrees, I'll have all these degrees. And so I walked out of college with a lot of credits and a lot of things I could have had my undergraduate in, but it was in sciences in the end. I went ahead and shadowed for physical therapist, and after a year of doing it, I was like, I don't know if I want to be a physical therapist. So,
after all of that.
After all of it. But, I was able to work my degree into, what I do now professionally. But as far as college, I took all the classes, I swear.
What do you do professionally now?
Well, I don't like to mention it too much because you could pretty easily track me down, because it's professional grade jobs. It's not these days. It's not hard to track you down.
Sure.
I like my privacy, so I'm afraid to give too many details about what my profession is. But I would say it's it's an office job type thing. Just nothing to do with game. It's nothing to do with gaming. No connection to gaming at all. My coworkers don't know that I game and play shmups or anything like that.
But you've got a 9 to 5. Let's at least say that. It's a 9 to 5.
I'm a 9 to 5. Yeah, I got a 9 to 5 job.
Okay, and is it you're back in Idaho, is it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so do you live far from where you grew up?
I live not far, but for America type of geographic. I can't talk. America geographics, no, because it's only it's only 1,000 miles. But if you're in Europe or something, 1,000 miles, you're in another country, right? So, but I'm in the same state, and I'm not that far away from where I grew up, no. But I don't live where I grew up. I don't see the people I grew up with or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, the country of Estonia is you can drive across it in 3 hours.
Exactly,
it seems nuts.
Right.
This
so
country has
officially live in another country by your geographic.
Yeah, especially coming from Australia, where we would, to go on holiday, I'd drive 8 hours. I'm just going on holiday.
Exactly.
I'm going to drive 8 hours. Yeah. Where here, 8 hours is 3 countries away. Estonia,
Right.
Estonia has a population of 1.3 million people. That's it. And it still kind of blows my mind after 10 years. We've got a border and a president and, our own government and the whole thing
so
for
cool.
what is a suburb of one of your cities.
I know. I think it's kind of cool, but I have no idea what it's actually like to live that way. But I think it sounds pretty cool, though, to have so concentrated of a country. It sounds kind of cool, but I wouldn't know. For instance, if you're in Idaho, there's sort of there's a identity to living in Idaho, like a state identity. Oh, you're from Idaho. That literally says a lot about you, because the culture and growing up in Idaho. Whereas if you're from New York and you're from Idaho, the culture clash is so different. When I lived in the Midwest, like I said, the things we talked about, the things that we were into, growing up, motorcycling in the mountains every day. So because it's such a big country, sometimes people think that's one thing that can be a little bit frustrating for me at times, where people from Europe will start saying, Americans are like this, Americans are like that. I'm like, whoa. Don't lump me in there. I get, you're thinking of people from LA or whatever, but there's a whole part of the country that you probably aren't aware of, or the way that people are there. But I don't expect people to be that way, because I'm horrible with that as well. European geography. I remember I thought someone was from Sweden and they were from Finland. I'm like, isn't that the same country? They're like, no, it's a different country.
More or less. Don't worry about it. And Swedes, Finns, it's the same thing. Don't listen to what they say. Finns just want to commit suicide more. That's the only difference.
And then and then what's funny is, so my family originally are all from Spain, or the Basque region of Spain. This may mean something to you, being in Europe and everything.
Sure, the north of Spain, yeah.
Yeah, so when I imagine Spain, because part of my family is from Spain and the other part of my family is from France. And so in my mind, I always imagine Spain and France being miles away from each other, being distinct, because they seem from an outsider very distinct, different cultures. And I look at the map, and they're like literally next to each other. I'm like, oh, okay, that explains it. But yeah, so I'm really bad with that sort of thing with other people. So I don't really fully blame them, because unless you kind of visit a country or set foot in it, it's actually really hard to understand what their life is actually like on a day-to-day basis, basically.
I had to open Google Maps to see what Idaho was. I knew it was a place in America. I understood this. Yeah. I wasn't quite sure. I think a state. I was like, I think it's a state. I'll just type it in the maps and see where it is.
It's a big one, too. Okay. It's a pretty big one. It's got the coolest shape of all the states. I mean,
it's a cool shape. Okay, right.
It's the coolest shape. It's like a head or something. It's really cool.
Yeah, borders still kind of get me. That thing you were talking about, Spain and France. Like that. As kind of humans, we have this. We want identity, and we'll kind of find it anywhere we can. And I love. Because in Australia, our borders are the ocean. You can't go to another. What are you going to do? Walk into the ocean? You go to the beach, you're in the water. There's no, it's very easy to kind of get. It's the island.
Something about that always strikes me as, really cool. I don't know why, but, really cool that you're just this big old island out in the middle of the ocean. It's, just you and the ocean. There's no escape, You're just out on this island. I don't know. Something cool about it.
But then you get all these European countries, and some I don't know, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, I don't know, some bloke just went, that line, now we're this, fuck you, you're some other dicks. I don't like you anymore because you're on the line. You're like, why? And I get maybe there's a river sometimes, okay, that's how we did it, but sometimes it's just a straight line. No, we don't like you, you're super different. Yeah, to that. So yeah, it's weird living in a, sorry?
I was saying, imagine, sometimes it's really cool to kind of think what life is like in the past, where it's literally you'd look at a mountain range and you'd be like, we don't go over that shit because the enemy is on the other side of that mountain range, so we're just staying on this side. I don't know, there's something so crazy about that.
Yeah, how I often, I'm sitting through Estonian winters, and it's, okay, I guess it's like you, it's rough, it's cold, we're maybe a little bit further north, I'm not sure, so it's dark.
Yeah, I think you are.
And I wonder what possessed people to come here. They were travelers. I guess they were trying to find lands to work. Okay, I can't be in that land. Some other bloke with a big spear's already on that bit of land. We can't live there. Fine.
Right.
We're gonna go up there. We'll keep walking, and then they stop in this place and go like, yeah, you know what's great? The refrigerator. We don't know what a refrigerator is, but it's cold, and we're gonna live. What possessed people?
I wonder. I would. I don't really travel too much, but it would be fascinating to visit that region of the world, because I do know what's funny is a lot of people from Russia do end up coming to Idaho. Well, a number of people from Russia do kind of end up coming to Idaho, and I feel like there's always sort of this connection, we get each other on some level, maybe because we live in these climates or whatever. And so I always wonder, people in that these areas, they're like, okay, we need to keep going. We need to find better land. Then they hit Siberia, and they're like, all right, we need to go back. This shit is too crazy. We need to roll back here.
It makes for tough people. The Estonians are interesting because they had their own. They've got their own language, cultural identity, this sort of stuff, and then for 50 or more years were subjects of the Soviet Union and had their views oppressed by the Soviets, and now they're re-independent and. It is with 1.3 million people. Sometimes it feels like an extended family. It's an extended family with a military. Not a very good one, but still, nevertheless, 1.3 million people, and we got a couple of tanks at least. We got a few guns, a few bombs, a couple of ships. There's a great sense of unity from here, and I get you on a state by state basis as well. There's some idea they want to preserve who they are. The language is really tough. I'm finally in language classes after 10 years. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know the feeling, because the Basque language, that's, a lot of my family are Basque, and, there's this whole pride around the Basque language. And so I was like, in my 20s, I was like, oh, okay. For the sake of my heritage, I shall learn language. That lasted for literally a week. And I was like, all right, sorry, dead ancestors. I'm going to sell you guys down the river because I'm not learning this shit. I'll just speak English and be one of those shames upon the family name or whatever. But actually what's kind of funny is that my family, because my grandmother and everything spoke like 4 languages or 3 languages or something. And my mom doesn't speak, we all just speak English because they're like, screw it. It's like, well, we came this far. We don't need to learn all these different languages. We need to just, let them go. So, yeah, I'm not. I know what you're saying, but I don't think I have the drive to try and learn this. Basque is so hard. I was like, I don't know.
Well, I've got some inspiration that if I get there's different levels of languages: A1, A2, and then B1, B2. And if I get B1, then I get finally permanent residency in Estonia. I meet all the other
there's
qualifications.
like a reward or something for learning.
Yeah.
Cool.
I kept telling my girlfriend, well, we'll just get married. And she's like, not for the visa, motherfucker. And so I figure, okay, I'll do this one on my own. But speaking of skills and learning, right? Maybe we can somehow work this back into shmups. I don't know.
Well, one thing I will say about shmups that constantly impresses me is how many of my fellow shmuppers are like language masters. This is something that is a real great boon to my podcast because, again, I only speak English, and I'm ashamed. I've tried to learn Spanish so many years. Many of my friends are fluent in it. I have no excuse other than I'm just too lazy to learn it, and like, it goes right out of my head. Like, I'll sit in, I took Spanish for like 4 years. I think at this case, I'm just done. But a lot of the people in the shmup scene are like language masters. They speak like 4 different languages. A lot of them learn Japanese for shmups. I'm like, okay, you guys are hardcore. Learn Japanese for shmups. Shmups aren't RPGs. You don't need to know Japanese to play them. But yeah, like there's a lot of people. It comes in handy actually a lot when I need help with Japanese. I'll message them like, what the hell does this say and everything. But it is that.
Do you think it's that memorization
trend.
thing? Do you think it's that visual audio memorization thing?
I think there must be something there because it's really prevalent. It may be because a lot of shmuppers are European, and it seems Europeans, just from my contact with them, are more language savvy. They learn all kinds of different languages and everything. So that could also be it. But it never ceases to impress me how multilingual a lot of the shmuppers are.
When I was thinking about me trying to learn Estonian, and for 10 years I've been that foreign idiot who I understand a lot of what's going on around me in my business and my work. I understand terms and the domain specific stuff. And so I listen to, my job is to promote stand-up comedy, and I promote Estonian language stand-up comedy. So I've listened to literally hundreds of hours of them talking on stage, and I zone out. But my point was, back when I first arrived 10, 12 years ago, it was like I wasn't familiar with it, and then I was trying to learn it, and it was very hard. Where now it's almost like a shmup that I've just sort of informally practiced for 10 years. Yeah, I've played a lot. I've never learned the pattern. I've never learned the skill. I've never sat down and formally grinded away at it. And now after 10 years, I'm finally learning the pattern, learning the syntax, the grammar, the route, the rules behind it. And now it's easier for me to pick up. I was almost so stupid. I needed that 10 years of just wiggling the stick to sort of, because now when I hear some Estonian, I can instinctively make some sense of it, but I have no idea what the rule is. And maybe there's something about learning shmups there as well. Like just playing for a while just play, just have fun, just fuck around for a while before maybe you start to formally dig into the rules of it.
Yeah, that has been an interesting topic on the channel over the years that I've never been fully sure what the best advice is as far as, okay, you want to get into the genre, what is the best way to go about it? Because I've studied this actually on the channel as much as I can study, and I've seen many different cases. I've seen, what I call like the super player types that literally they just show up and they're just good. And the thing is, I've seen this enough times now. Kiwi, Pearl, Moglar, and these are players that started, well, some like Kiwi and Moglar I know started after me. I think Pearl was a little bit before me, but you just see them in real time show up. They're like, oh, I got my first 1-all or whatever. You're like, oh, good job. 3 months later, they're getting like huge scores. They're embarrassing you. They're making you look like a punk. You're like, okay, there's something special about these players. So there's those types. And then there's kind of like the types like myself where like mid skill players that it's like we're not making waves, but we're getting stuff done type of thing. And then there's a lot of players that come in that really, this type of player, I really want to learn to help them because they come in with a ton of enthusiasm, and for a while there, they're just all shmup. They're ready to do it. They're loving it. And then there's like this switch that flips in their head and they're just done. And then they disappear. And I've seen it. It's almost like, it's almost sad sometimes where new player will come in. I'll be chatting with them like, oh yeah, this, that, they'll be real into it. And then switch flips and they're gone. They're just done.
What is it? What flips?
I don't know what it is. Well,
Huh.
One thing that I think has helped me is literally having a channel where I just talk about shmups all the time, to the point where I can't just leave, or it doesn't, there's always this sort of motivation pulling me back. But I do wonder if I didn't have the channel, if that would have happened to me, even where, you're really into it for a while and then you just find something that scratches that itch somewhere else, or maybe also genre, shmups are an extremely punishing genre. So you also might just get slapped around to the point where you're like, screw this shit, can't do this anymore. And you just leave. But I've seen it so many times. And like, these people aren't just people that were like casually motivated. Like they came in, they were very into it for a while there. And then they're just gone and they just disappear. It's like, what happened? So these are the players that interest me the most because they fascinate me. And what's interesting is that sometimes this will happen with super players, not just like regular players. I've seen extremely talented players show up, make waves, and then just boom, gone. It's like, what the hell happened? But so sometimes it's not even a skill thing, but
I want to get into this, Mark. I'm just going to take a quick toilet break if you don't mind.
No
We'll
problem.
take that. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Cheers, mate.
I gotta behave on camera because that's the trick. That's the old podcasting trick. You take the break, and then you get a shot of them picking their nose. I shall not be tricked. I've been a guest on enough podcasts to know. It'd be funny if you cuts this in. Let me see if I got anything for the stream while he's gone. Got my arcade stick. Normally, I'm entertaining the dead stream because it's a habit. Normally, I have my green screen effect on, right? So normally, this arcade stick has the magic, secret, hidden, invisible button. But since my green screen not on, now you see the truth. It's not really an invisible button. It's just a green button. So I hate to spoil the magic for everyone. Unfortunately, the invisible button is just a trick of the green screen, but it is cool when you see me playing. My hand's just hitting an invisible button. I've been thinking about actually replacing all the buttons and make them all invisible, but maybe I'll have to do that because these are getting kind of worn out anyway. Here's the switch.
Okay.
I was talking to the dead stream just in case. I said you weren't gonna trick me and catch me picking my nose on camera. It wasn't gonna happen. I know your podcaster tricks.
Yeah, I'll be doing some Carl Jobs style investigation. I found him out. That high skill level, and then that thing that makes you want to just switch and turn off. I've been streaming a little bit of DoDonPachi. Look, I'm not very good. I'm still learning. I can get up to about level 4 on 1 credit. I've been studying your videos, trying to do the level 4 boss. I can sort of get through it.
Yeah, I need to update that guide. So hang in there. I'm going to update that guide because that guide is...
I'm looking forward to it.
It's useful, but it's like... I've learned a lot of stuff since then, so I could probably make a much better guide these days. And it'd be all fancier and nicer. Because that was my guide. I made that guide back before I was a YouTuber type. When I was mostly podcasting. So like video editing to me and all that was very foreign. So a lot of my early videos, I really like the content as far as what I'm saying, but like the production qualities, I didn't know what I was doing. So
that's how it goes though.
So sometimes I debate whether I should like redo them, not like delete them or anything, like leave them up, but like do another version of it. Just do it again. Here it is again. 99% of you won't know about the original video anyway. And so
I get some almost, I guess you might even call it anxiety sometimes if I'm going to turn on the stream. Look, I know there's only, a few people watching, which is great. No problems with that. One or two, that's fine. But that when I'm playing DoDonPachi, I mean, I know I'm not good. Maybe now I can get up to level 3. I can get a decent game going on 1 credit, but I feel this anxiety because people are watching and I'm not that very good at it. I'm certainly not like the Japanese bloke on the next stream who's sitting on his Astro City playing away.
Yeah, destroying the game.
Yeah, and there I am. I've got 15 million. Yay. And I feel some anxiety. Oh, I'm going to die. Oh, I haven't done a good stream.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm dying again.
So
Will people
I
want to
actually
watch?
have some specific advice for this because
Okay.
this is something that comes up a lot with, especially with like live demonstrations and everything like that, where not even just newer players, like some really talented players have talked to me about, hey, I feel nervous on stream. And I these days play basically the same, whether I'm on stream or not on stream, unless it's like a really big stream and there's like, I look and there's like a lot of people watching, then I get that little bit of nerves. But for the most part, when I'm streaming on my channel, it's like I'm just practicing basically. And really the antidote to it is just stream more, just do it more, just keep doing it and doing it over and over. Suffer the humiliation early, and then later on it doesn't affect you as much.
That sounds like reason. It sounds like the advice I would give to an up-and-coming stand-up comedian.
Right, yeah.
Just keep going. Just get on stage every night as many times as you can. Eat dick. Keep going. Keep as long as you are trying and evolving. I keep saying, I'll give you spots. I don't mind. I'll give you as many spots as you need. As long as you're not just repeating by rote the same old set. That I want to see the little tweaks, the little things. Have you evolved? If I can see that, great. I will give you spots endlessly. And because I know you can't. I mean, I guess it's like shmup. Some people pop straight away. Some people are going to need years of grinding away to get there. And some people will grind away for years and never either get there either to be a super player or something like that.
I do personally think that playing well on stream is like a completely separate skill set from playing well. Like, I think in my like shmupper repertoire, that's like one of my best skills is playing well live on stream. It's like, that's one of the things I'm actually good at, as opposed to like, being really good at routing and all that sort of stuff. And I think that skill comes from a sort of a different place almost. For me, it comes from just a lot of years of doing competitive things, playing competitively, where like being used to feeling like there's lots of stakes and stuff. It does kind of have an interesting effect where sometimes where I'm playing just regularly, I almost feel like maybe I should stream this because sometimes like I need that little edge to get me to like pay more attention. So I think what's interesting is that anxiety can be like at first it can be like a real burden, but once you get more used to it, it actually can become a really useful tool because it gives you a little more edge when you're playing because it's like, okay, this matters slightly more because at least some people are paying attention. So it can actually help you improve faster over like for instance, okay, if you took 2 players, one of them who played alone in their bedroom and followed all my advice, did everything I told them, but they played alone in their bedroom, same player or a different player, same advice, but you streaming. I'd be willing to bet that the player that streams versus the player that plays alone will improve faster if they had the same total hours and everything. Because I think that streaming element, that little social edge, I think does push you faster than if you were just doing it in complete isolation, because that little bit of stakes makes much more difference than I think people realize.
That's interesting that you specifically define playing on stream or playing, let's say, even where people are watching to broaden it as a specific skill inside of the genre, just as routing can be good, just as you could be good at something. I never thought about it in that way before.
I think it's a little less explored because for a long time that wasn't a part of the genre at all. I don't think until we got stuff like Stunfest and then the more then I do Shmup Slam and everything, and we started this more movement now of having live shmup events. I think that's sort of the turning point for this, where this skill became a little bit more important. But for the longest time, that's not the way it worked. The way it worked was just you played in isolation, and then if you were real cool, you would actually record your video and show it. But a lot of people didn't. They just showed their scores, a screenshot of the end screen or whatever. So that was never really a part of the genre until I think a little bit more recently, but it's one of my favorite parts. So, and that I think comes from playing a lot of fighting games. Like fighting game players really recognize this because it's like your tournament skill versus your friendly or your whatever. Casuals. I can't remember what fighting game people call it, but
all of those
your
things,
tournament,
I think, yeah.
you're in tournament versus you're playing your friends or you're playing online or whatever. And like fighting game players realize there's like a very distinctive difference where some players are really good until they're in a tournament and then they fold. And then oppositely, there's some players who aren't really all that good when you're playing them normally, but in a tournament, all of a sudden they're like really good. And so I think skills have that, our shmups have that as well. It's just a little less explored.
Do you turn, when you stream shmups, from memory, you don't have your camera on, or do you do it sometimes? Or how do you go with the camera on you during a stream?
So in my streaming career, I've done it all in different phases. It's like phases. So when I first started, it was just gameplay. And then I actually turned my camera on for like a phase in the channel. So you see all these you won't see them anymore because Twitch, deletes them after a while. But there was a while there, yes, I was playing with like mic and camera and everything like that. And then I went through a phase where I was just playing with like a hand cam. And now I'm just getting so lazy. I don't have my hand cam. Sometimes I'll throw on my mic. I'm actually going to bring the hand cam back though. That's mostly just because of laziness, because I feel like it takes sometimes more time setting up the freaking hand cam than playing the game. And so I'm going to try and find like a permanent setup for a hand cam so I can just turn it on and it shows my hands. But yeah, so I've done it all actually. I've done like live commentary while I've played, which can be kind of interesting to try and do.
I've noticed obviously in the boss or at the end of the level or something, that's the only time you can make a chat, right?
Yes. Right now, I'm a lazy streamer as far as doing like the streamer stuff. I probably need to pick that up a little bit. I've been thinking about that. At least I had the hand cam. The problem with the mic, is that I need to be kind of a little bit careful, because sometimes what I'll start doing is, okay, if you put a mic in front of me, I'll start turning into like an entertainer again instead of like concentrating on the game. And so like my practice will start to degrade because I'll start like entertaining the stream and being like, oh, how's it going, everyone? Oh, watch this. Oh, look at this and all this. And then I'm not really right now I'm actually trying to practice Ketsu and get that to all. And sometimes I feel like if I have my mic on, I kind of get a little distracted and start entertaining the stream because I have that little like YouTuber instinct starts kicking in. I'm like, let's entertain the stream. Let's make this a party. And so then I stop like practicing as well. So that's why I've actually turned the mic off recently, because otherwise it's a real temptation to me to start just talking to the stream and, like trying to make it entertaining, which I know it should be. This is an interesting, I guess, topic that's very specific to shmups, because most people, when you're streaming, the whole point is to entertain. Like comedians, like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, aren't you supposed to be entertaining people when you stream? But a lot of the times, the purpose of my streams is it's literally just me practicing the game and being like, oh, you want to watch me practice the game? But that's not necessarily like the environment that streaming, like. For a while there, that's how people streamed games. Like, if you go back and watch like old speedrunning, like, and all those videos, they were just dudes playing games and going for grinding out runs and stuff. And these days, like, Twitch has really shifted to be much more sort of like you're an entertainer type, which it makes sense because it's, an entertainment platform, and like 99% of your audience is there for entertainment. Then there's that one dude watching like, oh, what's his strat in stage 3? Let's see what he's doing in stage 3, right? But originally, it was people all sitting there being like, well, what's he doing in stage 3? How is he beating that boss? What's the time save here? But over the years, because of how, the entertainment side of it has grown so much, that side of streaming has kind of gone off. So at times, it's like me practicing the shmup. I'm like, I've been actually conflicted about this for a long time. Like, should I stream this? Should I not stream this? Should I stream this on some crap little channel that no one will know about, only the people who care? Because it's like a little bit of a concern of mine, because let's say someone watches my videos and they're like really entertained, and then they watch my stream, I'm just playing, and they're like, what the hell is this? Like, why isn't he saying stuff? So yeah,
I
it's
think
a
it's
little
sort
bit
of.
I don't
think
really
it's-
have the answer, but
I think it seems to be more accepted in the shmup community that there's going to be no talking. Like it's at least like if you're playing Animal Crossing and there's no commentary, it's a bit like, okay, what the fuck? Why aren't you talking? But at least in shmups, it's like there's some level of understanding. Okay, I'm watching a good player focus. I know when I play these games, it's going to take focus. So I mean, maybe you could say like no audio, like in the title of the stream, no commentary or something.
Yeah, it's
set
tricky.
some expectation for it, how it should be.
Well, sometimes I'm a little punk because sometimes I will talk, and sometimes I'll throw in the mic, and all of a sudden I'm talking while I'm playing. So, I don't know. I really do need to figure something out though. But yeah, like maybe like you said in the title of the stream, like serious mode. You know, I'm just gonna be practicing. And then other times it'd be like, oh, I'll be chatting and hanging out. Because sometimes I do, like, when I'm not focusing on a shmup, like, really hard, like, I'm not trying to practice Ketsu or anything, like, I can play a little Mushi or whatever and chat and play. It's not a big deal. So it just kind of also depends on what you're doing, too. But, yeah, the streaming side of things is very interesting. Because I think the streaming landscape has really shifted.
I understand that instinct to want to entertain. I mean, I do it as well. Okay, I'm a stage performer. I'm used to filling the gaps. I'm used to just, okay, there's silence. Oh, God. And I think there's something actually that attracted me to shmups, that there was at least less of a expectation that you would talk. Like, I could just turn on the stream. It wasn't super weird. And a few people would watch, and it's fine.
Oh,
yes, would I get more?
That's
sure,
the
if I was
norm,
Mr. Entertainment.
I would say. Yeah, I would say like 90% of shmup streams are really gameplay focused, and then every now and again, you know, there'll be like meme streams or like people doing live commentary and stuff like that, and I'll do that from time to time too. It just kind of depends on what my schedule is, and right now I'm trying to get this Ketsui Omote to all, and so I'm trying to play a little bit more seriously. Sometimes here's another interesting topic that could be kind of maybe interesting to viewers, where even if you're not into shmups, where there's sort of, for me, there's this weird push and pull, where there's part of what I do is being the entertainer, YouTuber, content type person, and then there's still this vestige of me that wants to be a good player, right? And I think what happens, and there's almost like a prejudice where it's like if you make videos and stuff like that, and especially as much as I do, you're kind of moving away from being a good player towards being, you know, a pundit type person. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I definitely love being a shmup pundit, YouTuber and all that. That's like my main, I'm more skilled at that. But at the same time, I don't want to abandon trying my pursuit of trying to be a good player. So, I think that might be kind of an entertaining, unique aspect of my channel. It's like, you're not just watching me give my opinions, you're also watching me trying to get better at the genre, trying to become a good player. And I would do, one of my dreams is like to one day achieve like a significant score. But rather than being that person that would say, well, you know, I practiced all these years and everything like that, and everyone would be like, hey, yeah, okay. I could be like, watch, I have 5,000 videos, and you can follow my progress over 4 years of trying to do this. I think that would be really cool, because it'd be a real concrete example of what the genre actually involves. So, but I don't want to totally lose sight of trying to be a better player. But I also recognize I'm not like a world-class player or anything, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've heard you refer to yourself, you're not a top-level player or something like that. And I mean, I guess when I look at you, I've learnt from your videos. People that I know have learnt from your videos, but I guess we all have our own view of our own abilities, and we all look up to somebody else.
Well, I would say I've definitely, like, how you break it down is very interesting, because like if you broke it down in like worldwide gamer population, I would definitely be an expert. Like if you just threw me versus a random gamer, I'd be like insane. Like, holy shit, like the skill level is insane. But like if you put me in like a lineup of shmup players, then I think I would come up kind of like a top mid-tier type player. But then if you put me in a lineup of like serious shmup players, then I'm not on that list. And the thing about shmups is the skill ceiling in this genre is so insane that even if you put like the best Western players in that lineup, they still would not compare, well, most of them anyway, to the top Japanese players. And then if you took the top Japanese players and you put them line up, then there'd be like 2 or 3 that are just so insanely talented at the genre that even the best Japanese players can't compete with them. So it's really crazy how high of a skill ceiling this genre has. And I do want to try and communicate that in my videos, because if you're not really well trained in the genre, you know, one really strong player looks like the next strong player. But once you kind of are able to pick out what the genre involves, you can start to see, wow, like some of these players are unhuman what they're able to accomplish. And sometimes I don't even know how they do it. Even now, I'm like, how are they this good at the genre? I don't know. But
is commentating shmups a thing? Like to watch and to comment? Okay, so you can't talk while you're doing it. We understand that. But to have an expert, or at least someone who's a pundit at that level, knowledgeable, is that something that happens?
Yeah,
much?
definitely. So I do a lot of that on my channel, but also a really great channel that did that over the years before me was STG Weekly. That was like the main thing that they did, was they had these videos where they would take a top level replay and then they'd bring in people who were familiar with the game and they would talk about it and break it down. That's really useful for me a lot of the times, especially when I was getting into the genre, to figure out how exactly the games work. Another really good version of this that isn't as digestible as far as audio, but still incredibly insightful, is if you go to Jamer's channel and you turn on the captions, because he captions his videos. You will learn so much just watching his captions, because he's like a dictionary of shmup knowledge. Like that's how I, like, if I want to learn a shmup, I immediately go to Jamer's channel, like, please, Jamers, have a commentative video for this, please. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But I mean, you get like a really good understanding of the game doing that. And then you have sort of my commentary, which sometimes, like with DoDonPachi, can be really useful because I really play that game a lot. But I have a whole playlist on my channel where I just kind of talk about my 1cc's, and I kind of sort of fuse in like a bit of a review along with some gameplay tips and everything like that. So yeah, that's a thing I do quite a bit. I actually just did that for the new shmup that came out, Rise on EX. I think that's the latest video on my channel.
It just got released on Switch, right?
Yeah, I did a Maniac 1cc, and then I did some commentary for it.
So you picked up, so you did the 1cc. How were you playing that game? It was you played it before it came out on the Switch, right?
No,
no,
I just got it when it came out on the Switch.
How long did it take you to 1cc that game?
I actually can tell you because I have the streams here. So sorry, you may have to.
No, go for it.
I can give you the exact number, which is kind of fun. It didn't take me long as a spoiler, but let me give you the exact hours here, because I actually can tell you. See, that's the fun part about like streaming the stuff you play, is that you can actually look back and be like, oh, it took me this many hours to get the clear. So it was 2 streams, I know that. And let's see how many. It took me 2 hours.
Okay.
I thought it was more than that, honestly. But
I mean, it's not bad. It's
yeah. I thought it was like 4 hours, but no, it was just 2.
Okay. Where do I want to go? There's a few things. I kind of had a bunch of random questions to sort of wind us down a little bit. You were talking about before that sometimes, okay, what happened with you when you took the switch from fighting games to shmups? And you said you looked around. As I understood, you looked around a little bit first. You weren't just like, I'm going to shmups. It seemed to be you were trying Metal Slug.
That's a great question. So I had like a gateway drug into shmups called Metal Slug. That is how, that is the, that's the way you get into them. If you have no other ways, play a bunch of Metal Slug. So what happened was, I was playing a ton of fighting games. That's mostly what I did for years, was just play fighting games. And what happened was, one of the fighting games that I played died, and the replacement game came out. So I played a lot of Street Fighter 4 for many years. And then Street Fighter 5 came out, and I didn't like it. So I was like, all right, what do I do now? So I played other fighting games. But, it was like, that experience left kind of a sour taste in my mouth. And it's something that ever since then, it's hard for me really to get into fighting games super deeply now. because that experience where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to spend 5 years, 6 years practicing this game, getting hella good at it, or, for me anyway. And then boom, bye-bye game, and it's gone. And you really can't play it. Like, I've had this with many fighting games too, like Third Strike, all this sort of things. And it starts to, for me, it really start to warm me down. Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive. Like, I'm a huge fan of Dead or Alive. And it's one of my favorite fighting games.
What do you mean
actually.
you can't play it? You mean the community shifts to a different game?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I literally can't play Dead or Alive other than, you go to play this really crappy online lag, and there's like 4 people, and I play the same 4 people, and then there's like that one dude who's just really freaking good that destroys you. But that's something in fighting games that has really frustrated me with the genre, where you get really into a game, and you almost get punished for it, because once the player base moves on, like, you either move on with the player base and learn a whole new game, or you just stick around and beat everyone down, and then they leave, and then you're left not being able to play. And so I was like really frustrated about this. So I thought, I'm going to play some other genres of games for a while here. And so I had Metal Slug for many years at a local arcade, and I always had I loved Metal Slug, but I never was really super good at it or anything. I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool if I beat Metal Slug on 1 credit? And I thought this would be like groundbreaking shit. I thought this would be like, break the internet. Alert, everyone. I have beaten Metal Slug on 1 credit. And so I spent a good few months learning to do it, and I got the 1cc. It's actually one of the first videos on my channel. And I was convinced that this was some groundbreaking shit. And then I ended up realizing, okay, no, it's pretty cool, but it's not like extraordinary to get a 1cc in Metal Slug. But in the process, I was using something called Final Burn Alpha at the time, like the older version of it. And Final Burn Alpha supported some other games, and one of the other games it supported was DoDonPachi. So I started playing DoDonPachi, and then I met the magic of the DoDonPachi laser, and I fell in love with that shit. And then from there, I just got really into DoDonPachi, and then I got hooked, and then I just kept going. And that's kind of the way I got into the genre, is through Metal Slug into DoDonPachi. That's what hooked me.
So for you, a shmup is a genre that can, like, no one can take it away from you because it's a single player,
Yes.
more or less. Okay,
Yes,
it's yours forever.
Exactly. Yeah, and it will live. Well, what's really cool, for instance, here. Damn it. I don't want to mess up the camera. But anyway, what's really cool is I recently got these tapes, these Superplay VHS tapes. And they're like, one of them's like a bootleg of these DoDonPachi runs. And some of the shit is from 1998 or 2003. I can't remember, but it's like that era. And they are doing some legit insane runs on these old VHS tapes. And this was almost 20 years ago. And the fact that some dude's score 20 years ago still stands the test of time, and I could still 20 years later try to compete. It would be amazing if I beat this dude's score, because it's really freaking good. But like the cross time elements of the game of the genre is super cool to me. That you could literally come, get a world record, and have it stand for like 15 years or something. And then 15 years later, some dude has to show up and try and beat your world record. And like you said, the games can't be patched. You can't remove the game from existence. You can't, there's just so many things about it that feel so permanent and lasting that really appealed to me. And so that's why I've kind of really drifted away from fighting games, especially as of late, because they're just so in chaos all the time. We're patching this. I have a friend who is really into this one game called Rivals of Ether. It's a pretty cool game. And I basically learned it and played it because he was my friend, and we'd hang out. It was like a social thing. And we're both pretty competitive. Anyway, the meta of this game was his character constantly got buffed. Every single month, his character would get better, and every month, my character would get nerfed. And so, literally, over the months, his character just keeps getting better and better. Oh, he's got a new move here. This does more damage here. Oh, I can do this combo on you now. And my character gets worse and worse and worse. So, like, this move doesn't work anymore. This combo doesn't work anymore. Now I get punished if I try and do this. So, I was like, this is such bullshit. It really frustrated me. So
yeah, I get
that
that
is
where you're
something
coming
cool
from.
about shmups. Where like, you're not gonna play DoDonPachi and all of a sudden AL's laser's smaller or like it does less damage or something. Like it's not changing. So something about that I think is really cool.
Part of what I want to, I mean, I love DoDonPachi. I love the game. There's something about it. It's just the thing that sucks you in. It feels almost perfect. But I also want to, I've been to Japan a few times, and as soon as they open the borders, I want to go back. And I love going to the arcade really cool. in downtown Tokyo. And I think for me, there's something that I want to be able to finish the game on, like in an arcade, let's be realistic, maybe 2 credits to be able to go to that arcade in Tokyo. They've got a DoDonPachi machine there, and I want to I don't have to make a score. I understand Mr. Japanese Man there is amazing. He comes there every day after work for the last 20 years.
Some of the best the best DoDonPachi players in the world down in Japan.
So I just want to be able to go and not die easily, and at least be like, okay, I could do something on that real machine in that real arcade.
And
that's
you could get a
lot of my inspiration.
You could get your score on the Japanese, what's called JHA. I don't know how it works as far as like regular scores, if you need a world record to get on there or not. But being eligible for it is really cool. That would be super cool to go down there and play on the Japanese cabinets. Yeah, I feel the attraction. Absolutely.
Do you have a DoDonPachi PCB?
I don't, but I'm very tempted to get one. I'm just kind of sitting in the pocket, waiting for a deal to show up, because they are quite expensive. The nice thing about DoDonPachi, though, is as compared to a lot of other cave PCBs, it's not as bad. Like, you can get one, and, it's kind of like in the $700 to $1,000 range. The problem is I sort of have to justify the expense, and I'm trying to save money. It's like, hey, yeah, I know we've been saving money, but, I need to buy a $1,000 PCB. I mean, this is an obvious expense, right? I mean, come on now. So, but yeah, I do want to get one, not only just for vanity, but also because sometimes they'll do Japanese live events, like Shmup Slam. There's some Japanese equivalents to that, but in Japan, emulation is a no-go. Not allowed. You can do it in Shmup Slam perfectly fine. So I can't play DoDonPachi in those events because I don't have the PCB. So it would be cool to have the PCB so I could play it in like a Japanese event. That would be really cool.
I imagine as well, and I know you've talked about the very, fundamental, very straight up, very strict, you might say, we say in a respectful way at least, about things like that. And I guess they're not embracing something like Mister. I play on a Mister. I feel like the Mister is giving me the closest experience without having
the
to pay $800.
Really cool. Yeah, the Misters. Did you see my my little content series of doing all the beta tests for that thing and everything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I was pretty involved
when he was making it. Null Object was making it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I know. Shout out to him for doing that. It's super cool. There's actually a special build for the Mister that has a training pack that I put together. So if you want to have like a stage select and everything like that, you can do that on the Mister. There's a special
that was cool. I was
pack.
one of the contributors to that at the time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, all the names blur together for me, but yeah, that's really useful. When I get back to DoDonPachi, you bet I'll be playing that bad boy on the Mister. I'll be playing it on Shmup Arch as well for certain things because save states. But as far as like when I sit down and I want to get the big score and when I get the full runs, I'm going to do it on the Mister.
Nice.
Really cool.
Finally, Mark, I won't take up too much of your time, but I want to know what arcade stick are you playing on right now, currently? I know it's always changing, but...
Not anymore. I have the ultimate stick. Nice. I've been playing on this for the past year. I don't think I'll ever change it, at least not in the near future, because I got the...
Okay, so what do we got? Let's walk us through. We've got the... What's the stick in there?
So this is the Mark Frankenstick. It has... Nothing on this is original, except the box. The box is made by Hori. Everything else is different. So
what's the lever? Sorry, pardon me when I said stick. What's the
lever? Is I have a whole video about this. I call it like the perfect Korean stick lever. It's a particular build of the golden lever that I put together, and it is amazing. I absolutely love it, and I'll stick with this. I've used it for a year now, and the other day I actually fired up and I played on my older lever, and I was like, why was I playing on this shit before? Like, this lever, I absolutely cannot recommend it enough. So this is what I use for everything. Shmups, anything that allows me to play on an arcade stick. I was actually using it for Sin and Punishment yesterday. I was using this and then the mouse. I was like, arcade stick mouse. That's the new meta for FPS. Arcade stick
and
mouse.
what's the PCB that's in that?
So I have two of them in here. So I have a Brooks retro board, and then I have a Brooks universal board or ultimate board. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's universal board. So and you can dual mod them together. So, see, this thing looks like hell. I'm not known for my visual, like modding skills. But basically, you see this Ethernet port here. This thing here, look how jank this is. But this is my turbo switch. I ran out of buttons. So
that's a micro switch on the outside for the people you can't quite see. Yep.
Yeah. So that activates turbo. So you hold it, and then you hold the button, and turbo works. But anyway, so there's this Ethernet port here. And the cool thing about the retro board is there's cables that you can get with it. So you can connect it to a PS2, you can connect it to a Dreamcast, you can connect it to a Saturn, PS1, SNES. You can connect it to all this different stuff. And then I also have the Ultimate board, like dual modded in there. So if I hold Start and Select and plug it in, then it activates the Ultimate board or Universal board for PS4s, computers, Xboxes, 360, anything USB basically. Dang. So you put those two together and you basically can play your arcade stick on anything, and it's really cool. I can also use it on my PCBs too. So things just a beast.
I like that it's all in one. I've got a hoary big body like that as well that I've changed the buttons, the stick, and right now I've got a Saturn pad hack in there, which is not
like sitting inside.
It's sitting inside rather, because I think it was an Xbox One. I found it not too cheap, but who's playing on Xbox One? So I left the original PCB in there, and there's enough room to fit the Saturn pad hack in there too.
I did that. So, I did that for a while too.
If I wanted to move to a different, I'd have to put a whole new pad hack in there, which, okay, what is it, 10 minutes to open it up and do that, but it's not instantaneous like your solution is.
Yes, and so before the retro board, I was right there with you, pad hacking the shit out of everything. And I had a SNES pad hack. I was the pad hack dude. I had the SNES pad hack, the Genesis, Saturn. And it was, like you said, it was an absolute pain in the ass. Every time you had to swap out the boards. And I tried to make like this sort of jank quick release thing where you'd like put them on like a harness and you'd like pull them out. But the problem is it didn't really work all that well. So I ended up having to like just reinstall it every single time. So eventually, when I got the retro board, I was relieved because I was getting sick of having to. But I had to ask you, so you have a big old Hori. Do you have the Big Mama, or do you just have the like the smaller one like this? Or do you have
you mean the big... By Big Mama you mean the Vuelix?
Yeah, like the whole panel one. That thing is so I've got freaking cool.
I've got that. Something, that pretty much that exact box or case.
Yeah.
Pretty much that thing, yeah. I missed the Vuelix. Yeah, the Kai, yeah.
The Kai is fantastic. I always recommend
it's a nice box, but the same thing. I've replaced everything pretty much in there already.
What's great about this box is it is a real hunk of metal. So if you ever, you're out in Estonia and you're stuck on a mountain, you can just slide down the mountain on your arcade stick if you're ever trapped, because the thing is sturdy as hell.
Yeah, you need that big box. There was a Vuelix for sale, Reese, for a while ago, and it was in the middle of a pandemic when I didn't have any income or any money, and I went, no. And now work's picked up again, and the company's got some income again. I'm like, why didn't I? I should have sold everything to buy that thing.
Well, the thing about it too is I remember a while in college where I shouldn't have been, I had like basically no money, but I developed this habit of buying like expensive records. And so I was like, I guess I'll starve to death with my records, type of thing. At least I'll eat my records in the end if I have to. Yeah, I've always wanted to get one, but they're so freaking huge. You guys can see my limited space. Like, where would I put the damn thing? But one day I'm going to make like a real jank, like homemade cabinet where I'm going to put my giant CRT in here, and I'm gonna put one of those bad boys on there and like make it into like a real sort of cabinet equivalent, because that thing is really cool. I've always wanted one. They're just so big, I can't really find anywhere to put it.
Right, the practicality of it. There's a bloke,
Yes.
I know there's a bloke in Finland, just across the border, across the water, sorry, who has a warehouse arcade thing, and I'm going to go real soon. I think we can travel there now with the restrictions and shit. But he's got an Astro City for sale for about 800 euros. I mean, I have no room for it, but I'm like, not many Astro Cities are going to come up around this area.
You have to buy wood and concrete and like build something in your backyard and put your Astro City in there.
Right.
I mean,
and then PCB, but then maybe I was thinking I was going to put a Mistercade in there instead. It seems like a better solution.
You could dual wire it. That's what I plan to do. I plan to like put a computer in there, like a smaller one, but a little computer in there for like the maiming and the shmup arching, and then maybe stick a PS4 in there for the M2 ports. And then throw the Mister in there for the Mister action. And just load that thing up.
Nice, mate. Okay, let's wrap it up there, Mark. Oh, Mark, sorry, I have one more question. One more very, very short question. The handle, Mark MSX, is it the motorcycle MSX? Why did you get MSX?
It is not. That's really cool, though. It's the microcomputer MSX.
The microcomputer. Oh, because after all I talk about like you weren't into microcomputers, I went, it now must be the motorcycle.
So I have a really disappointing thing to all the MSX fans over the years, which is that my familiarity with the MSX begins and ends with Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Not Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, because I am still, but especially when I made my handle, a massive Metal Gear fan. It's one of my favorite franchises. But the thing about it was, like, all the Metal Gear names, everyone has them. They took them all. Like, if you go, like, there's, like, popular versions, everyone has these names. Like, Big Boss, you can't use that. Solid Snake, you can't use that. Like, there's so much shit in the game you can't use, because it's already been taken. Sniper Wolf, like, some hot chick is Sniper Wolf, so you can't take that. So I was like, oh, shit. So then I thought I'd be, like, hardcore about it. Be like, well, a real Metal Gear fan knows about the MSX versions of the games. And so it comes from that. It comes from the MSX versions of Metal Gear. But over the years, there's a lot of, like, real hardcore MSX fans, and they hit me up. And they're like, oh, what shmups do you recommend on the MSX? I'm like, Metal Gear, I guess. I don't know. But so it comes from the microcomputer, but I'm mostly familiar with it from Metal Gear, not from like being an expert in microcomputers.
Okay, well, it's a good name. And I was going to say, I think Electric Underground is a dope name. I'm terrible at naming shit.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you like it. So there's actually a funny little backstory with Electric Underground where when I began it, there was actually another Electric Underground, which was about electronic, like, dubstep music. It was a show about electronic dubstep music, and they would talk about like doing drugs and listening to dubstep and stuff. And I remember when I started my channel, like, people were telling me, "Hey, you should change your name because there's this dubstep channel that's, bigger than yours." And obviously people won't know you, and like Google will go to them or whatever. But I was like, no, I will not relinquish the name. I will beat them. And so I passed this mark quite a few years ago. But what my first goal of the channel was beat the other Electric Underground so that I have the title of the Electric Underground.
You're so competitive. You had to find someone to compete against.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I thought it was super cool name. And it was actually a holdover because I was going to do a podcast about fighting games many years ago called The Electric Underground. So I was like, that sounds like a cool arcade name. If I had an arcade, I would have named it The Electric Underground. So like, oh, that's such a cool name. I'll use it for my podcast. Then I was like, I still want to use the name, even if it's still arcade related. Shmups are arcade genre, so it still fits. So The Electric Underground was my like fan fiction-y. If I had an arcade, I would call it The Electric Underground.
Nice. All right, Mark, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much thanks for taking the time to talk to me today, man. I appreciate that.
No problem. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks everyone for listening. Hope you liked the episode. Catch you next time.